That's pretty cool. Yeah, I was really interested in it. Yes. Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah. Well, that's the problem there. Yeah, if you're a supervisor or something like that. Yeah, that would be beneficial. I mean, I see them maybe some of them. I don't know who knows. They're not really knowing.
Benefits representative. And Kaiser actually had like their head of HR. My grandmother came to
Because it's good, actually, to meet a lot of your business people. Once you're very good, yeah.
A big part of it is
That's, yes.
Got your message, that's fine.
We need to get going. I'm sorry.
I think as long as we have,
We'll bring the meeting to order. All stand and we'll pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can we have a roll call, please?
here.
Here.
Here?
Here. Okay, first is, do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Move my glasses
I would
up.
come and not say something. God. Wrote it down. Pretty scary. My name is William Quinville. I live at 6280 Horseshoe Bar Road. I am the co-chair of Loomis Citizens for Responsible Growth. Our organization is still alive and well. I would like to remind this group that we have a mission statement in this town. It says the town of Loomis is committed to preserving a quality of life in which families can grow and enjoy the small atmosphere, a town in which there are concerns for all segments of our society, including businesses, residents, a town that encourages the participation of all of its citizens in civic and community activities, a council and town staff that responds courteously and respectfully to concerns and needs of the town's residents, and a plan that calls for slow quality growth while preserving the financial integrity of our town. That's the mission of this group and the mission of the town council. This group, I want to point out, I live on Horseshoe Bar Road. I'm familiar with people that live on King Road. There is so much development going out beyond our borders that the traffic has become a nightmare. At 12:30 at night, I have to wait sometimes to get out of my driveway. It's that bad. Somehow this group or someone in the town has to interface with Placer County Planning Commission and figure out what kind of environmental impact report has to be filed for them to keep building all this stuff out there. It's insane out there. The trucks going out there building stuff, they're going by my house from 5 o'clock in the morning on. And it's getting worse. We're getting beyond our traffic level C, and we should not allow anything in town to take us beyond a level C. There are times during the day when it's an F. So it's your job to hang on to this mission statement and do what it asks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, thank you. Okay, so next we will adopt tonight's agenda. So can we have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
I motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
Second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, tonight's agenda has been adopted. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Consent agenda is the product status report and the minutes from May 28th. Okay. Seeing none, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, consent agenda has been approved. Next, we'll open the public hearing, and it's item number 3. It's application 1016, conditional use permit. The applicant, Nick and Jenna Lyons, for Smog Busters. So if we have a staff report, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Welcome. Nice hot day to be inside in the air conditioning. The project you have before you is a conditional use permit for 3865 Taylor Road. The business is Smog Busters. They are a smog-only vehicle testing facility. They do no repairs. They do not do any type of large vehicles or RVs, strictly automobiles. You find that this comes to you because the zoning code requires property in the commercial zone that abuts a residential neighborhood to seek a use permit. That's a little number 2 footnote.
Put that in your face.
Is there any way to? No? Okay. There isn't any way around that. But it is what it is, and the business at 3865 is also occupied. It has 2 buildings on it. The building at the front is building what I refer to as Building 1, and on the left-hand side of that, Unit A is Reeves Auto Parts. Unit B on the right-hand side is what Smog Busters is looking at going into. There is a business at the back of Reeves that's a landscape contractor. So just front-loaded for retail. The whole back of the lot is all construction contractors of various types, drywall and things like that. And those have been there for a long time. They're kind of grandfathered in as legal non-conforming. Typically in the CG zone, those type of uses wouldn't be allowed. They would be out in the ILT or the IL district. But they continue where they're at until they change out and a new use goes in. So they're all fine that way. One of the nuances with this application is that the Smog Busters will be renting an existing Unit B that already has the office. It has the roll-up door in the back where they can pull the vehicles in to test them and then turn around and leave. The front parking lot currently has 1 ADA accessible spot for Reeves Automotive. In this application, we're looking to add a second ADA spot for Smog Busters so that it's, easily for ADA access directly to there without having to park down by Reeves and then get down to Smog Busters. So that was of importance. The town engineer noted, and you saw in the pictures, the 2 driveways. The driveway on the northern side has been repaired and replaced, and just from what I gather, that happened when Hubbard Insurance went in and they were able to redo that side, but the south side of that driveway entrance, of the second driveway entrance, still needs to be repaired. Also, ADA-wise, is the path of travel, the ADA path of travel from Taylor Road to the building, which is non-existent at this time, but in working with the property owner and the property manager, the property owner will set up a fund and start putting some bank money in there until that improvement can be completed. The driveway on the south side, that'll have to be done a little sooner, and of course the ADA access parking spot will have to be done before Smog Busters gets in, but that's kind of minor. So staff will continue to work with the property owner to get those things accomplished, in addition to SP Mud, or was it Water that wanted an additional, it was SP Mud for the clean out for that particular building. So the clean out and the ADA, we kind of tie with the business owner and the property owner, whereas the other improvements are totally on the property owner. in addition to kind of cleaning up some of that stuff happening in the back with RV storage, vehicle storage, and all those other things. They do have a property management firm, and periodically the tenants receive notices to clean up, and things get all tidy again, and then they start kind of fluffing back. So they either have or will be resending out those notices to get a little nuisance abatement cleaned up in the back. So that's kind of just an ongoing maintenance thing. For Smog Busters, and getting their approval on this so that they can get their business license and go forward with their state certifications and setting up the smog testing shop is of most importance. So, one thing noted in the staff report was the business itself as being a testing-only station that doesn't do any service work. They're not selling parts. They're not doing vehicle repairs. And it really doesn't fit in with the current zoning code because there are no repairs. So in the staff report, I included a little verbiage for you guys as we go through doing zoning code amendments and updates to possibly consider a new definition for a vehicle services where there are no repairs. It may kick this, although the residential zoning district kicks it into that use permit process. If it was someplace else in the CG zone, they would just need a minor use permit. But because they're not doing any vehicle repairs, I feel it might be good, but based on your opinions, to create a category where if it's a window glass tinting shop, a test-only type repair shop, maybe everything else is service related, but to create a category that doesn't include that repair portion, so it's more of a service. A car wash is a by right permitted use within the CG zone. So you don't go through a use permit, it's a self-serve car wash. So this process seemed a little cumbersome for just opening a business. So I think we can be creative as we look at doing zoning code amendments to add a definition where something like this may fit in, although I would still leave that number 2 footnote, so if the site abuts a residential zone, they'd have to at least go through a minor use permit versus a full-blown use permit. So make it a little more applicant user-friendly, get the businesses in place without a whole lot, but still paying attention to those residential neighborhoods if it's close to that. So that's the only reason for that discussion. Nothing that you have to act on at this time, but just a little bug in your ear as we go forward, because zoning code will be coming, we're going to start kickoff on general plan. So the zoning code and the general plan kind of go hand in hand. So as one changes, the other one's going to change, and as we get more refined in the zoning code, we'll look to do some kind of modifications there if you choose.
Okay.
The applicant is here, also
Okay.
the property manager, if anybody
Okay.
has
And
any
do we
questions
have any
of them.
questions from the commission for staff?
I have a couple. I noticed the sewer district, South Placer Mud, has in there, they've outlined the wrong building here. So my question is, did they write their, were their requirements based on the wrong building, or did they actually go, in other words, they want certain things,
I didn't notice that,
and
Jean.
they've said that the building is undersized for a commercial building, and some things like to put in a clean out.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, just because they circled the wrong building, did they look at the correct one or not? And maybe this little commercial building has less sewer than this bigger building over here. So that's something that probably needs to get at least checked out with them to see. if their requirements are,
Look at this one.
are the right, for the right building or not.
Correct, yeah, good observation, thank you.
And the other one had to do with, we probably can come back to this later, but on conditions of approval. Oh, yeah. On page 12 of 15 on roadway drainage and grading, item 8, the plans for improvement need a registered civil engineer and approved by the town engineer prior to any construction. I'm trying to think, well, they're not doing a whole lot. They're doing restriping or marking an ADA parking space
Correct.
and something that goes, that fix the driveway, but then the next one says that the driveway is going to be as approved by the town engineer.
So a little redundancy there, but it kind of puts everybody on notice. If you're going to do something, it's got to be approved, and not just the driveway. So even though there's nothing proposed, let's say we approve this and they go off without that in there, they wouldn't know that any improvement will require that town engineer approval.
Well, what I'm not questioning that. I'm wondering, what of these things require them to have a civil engineer's approval and plans?
The property entrance would require the civil engineer plans so that it's to grade and all of that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that would be done under an encroachment permit. So typically, those kind of improvements, the engineering standards are stamped before they come in under that permit application for the town engineer to review.
Okay. That's all I had.
I have a question about the parking. It says there's 66 parking spaces for that particular area, but are the parking spaces allotted per building, or is it everyone, just whatever's open, you use it, and then?
It is kind of a group parking situation.
It's a group
there.
situation?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I did intensely go through the building square footages and who's in what space, and it's like, but I think that inconsistency comes with the previous approvals and who's in there versus having things go in and be compliant to our town parking standards. So that's why it's important to clear out the vehicles that aren't registered in the RV and create more parking for patrons.
Because I don't know if Reeby's would really want all these people parking, in their spots
In
right in
their
front of their,
spot.
and then behind, parking behind versus in front, and I don't know if.
I've been out there several times in reviewing this application, and the front parking lot is pretty vacant.
Oh, okay.
Where the back is every which way. So, it being a smog test facility, they do one vehicle at a time. You may get the person that's there, and then the next one there a little early, so just a little overlap, and they get both sides, that whole area. So that wasn't one of my concerns when I looked at how the parking was being done there.
Okay.
It's not like they have a whole group of people waiting at one time. They're just kind of one at a time,
One
or
by
there might
one.
be two that show up or something, but
Yeah, just a little
it's
back-to-back.
not like a store or something where you have
Right.
several
10 people are going to come in at one time. Yeah.
Well, I was just concerned that other occupants might say, you're parking in our spot, the riff of that, but if it's, everyone knows they can park wherever they want, then maybe they'll all get along just fine,
The previous,
I hope.
what was it,
Business?
some business.
Oh,
would
the
have-
window tinting.
Oh, was it a window tinting in there
Yeah.
before?
So there would be
The same kind of
clients
thing.
there
Yeah, same thing,
now and then.
right.
And for this business, they only propose one employee.
Oh,
So it's an employee, a laptop, a customer area, they,
Pretty low impact.
real low impact. Yeah.
okay.
Doesn't get any better.
I had a question, Mary Beth.
Yes, sir?
I noticed we're specifying the hours under the conditions, the hours of operation. Yet Reeves is open almost all the time right there. I'm wondering, was there a reason we did that? We're not following our standard, which is, what, 8 in the morning till 5 or something?
Yeah. And
And I'm just wondering, you know, hey, I hope their business takes off and they need to extend their Saturday hours. Is what I'm getting at. And I don't know that, see, then they have to come back to us.
right.
So I'm just wondering if we could just say, you know, was there a reason we restricted them beyond the zoning ordinance, or?
I put that in there based on their comments of their service hours of operation.
Okay.
And didn't, you know, go outside of that. Being a one person, you know, if that's the only person there, but, you know, we can definitely talk to the applicant and see if they'd like that amended so that they can possibly be open more hours. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, good point. I have one question about the clean out. We had a clean out on our property, on the front of the property, done about a year ago, and SPMED said it was their responsibility to do it. So is this clean out also kind of on the road? And is there a difference between residential and maybe commercial?
And commercial?
That-
Probably, and that's where the applicant or owner are directed to SP Mud to work that out.
Yeah.
I don't know where they want it, so there's your first point of contact with SP Mud. Where do you want it? How do we do it? And like Jean said, they may have been looking at the other building, so it might not even be applicable.
That's something that, if they haven't already thought of, would certainly be a question to
Yeah.
raise.
Is that the only sewer service to the entire property?
Yes.
Okay.
If they were talking about the right parcel. So that if they looked at the wrong parcel, then there may be other things.
Other
but
issues.
Yeah. So, you know, the caveat of meet all requirements of SP Mud kind of shifts under there. So we work that out in the conditions. When they come back, we check off what's been done, what hasn't, and why or why not.
Well, I noticed it also says the lateral may be required.
You know, their comments were kind of vague that way, and rather
Yeah, that's
than...
the wrong property.
Yeah, rather than myself make the assumption that I threw that back to SP Mud and said, is this required or what? And it is, if and when it's determined that line needs to be upsized, they're putting the owner on notice that it's on them to do it. So, you know, and there were a couple other things in there that were, besides the clean out, that were just kind of vague, and so I tagged them, and she did reply and said, no, this is for future, the clean out now. So I said, thank you, I didn't want to make that assumption. So I do have that in writing.
Yeah, it's a confusing picture because it actually has two sites that are highlighted, that are on either side. Right, so
Oh, on the SP Mud photo?
yeah. So I wasn't even sure.
So what are they talking about?
Yeah, I had no idea what they meant by that.
Oh, I see, it's got the yellow around the...
Yellow around the other one too.
Oh, down the street, yeah. Maybe that was their point of reference for where the lines go or something. I don't know, but I will get that determined.
It's just confusing.
Yeah.
Is the red typically where the sewer line comes through from that side street? Or it's going to the side street rather than into?
To the house,
Taylor?
to the building. Yeah, and that's the adjacent building.
Right.
And it's hard to see because it's so dark too.
Well, at any rate, that one will get looked at and clarified.
Yeah. We will review that and make sure they're good and compliant.
This is a concrete surface in place. This is the line.
With this approval, we are also seeking your finding that the project is exempt from SEQA.
Okay.
And then conduct the public hearing and then also adopt the resolution afterwards.
All right, any more questions, comments from the commission? Okay, next is the opportunity for the applicant to speak to the project, if you choose to do so.
Up to the podium.
Just kind of, yeah, just
My
please.
name's Nick Lyons. I live at 3685 Cedar Lane, Loomis. I just want to thank all you guys for your time and all your efforts for putting this together. I would be okay with the hours, extending it from 8 to 5. Our current location, we just work from 8:30 to 5 and then 8:30 to 2 o'clock, a little bit shorter day on Saturday. But I'd rather have it be put to 5 o'clock in case we do get really busy, that we could have the option to extend those hours. One car at a time, basically. If 2 customers do show up, each smog takes about 15 minutes. So I wouldn't imagine more than 2 or 3 cars showing up at one time. So we'd be able to rotate those customers in and out as quickly as possible and free up the parking lot. So just so you guys know, it takes about 15 minutes on average. That's all I have to say. Thank you, guys.
Excuse me, before you leave, does the commission have any questions for the applicant? Or- No.
Yeah, I do, because the improvements that are being required here are rather permanent improvements. So I'm wondering, is that property owner's responsibility or yours? Because Reeves is sharing some of those improvements.
Yeah, go ahead.
Patricia Green, 3323 Sailor Ravine Road, Auburn, California. I represent the owner also, and I'm working with the applicant also. To answer your question, we have talked with the applicant, and they will be handling the cost in regards to the handicap parking space, because that's very specific to the use caused by their building or their operations. The rest of the improvements will be put on a plan with the property owner. Some of those we have to address immediately, such as the clean out and the driveway. That would be a shared cost with all the tenants within the park, because they've contributed to that deterioration and not the new applicant. So that will be a cost that, again, we've talked about setting aside funds so that we have a plan in place to address that, and also the path of travel for the ADA.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next would be public comment. Anybody?
Good evening. Sonia Coupler, 5630 Tudor Way, Loomis. I'm just curious about the exemption from CEQA, and I'm also curious about, I know some of the agencies replied regarding the property, but I noticed one of them was the Air Quality Board did not respond back, and I'm wondering, are they going to, if they don't respond within a certain amount of time, do you guys try to contact them again? And I'm also wondering about, because this affects my neighborhood, it actually impacts the neighbors that are right across the street from me. And I noticed part of the report said it's not detrimental to health. And I'm just wondering if maybe the applicant could explain as far as when testing is done. And I know I've had to take my vehicle in to get it tested, and because it idles high, and if you could explain, like how much emissions does that put out into the air, and what is the effect to the air quality to the neighbors behind us, or behind the property? Thank you.
To address Sonia's first question regarding the air pollution district, they did reply. They received the referral. They replied, and their response was, "We have no comment on this application." So it's not that we did not receive a comment, their comment was no comment, so they had no issue with that. And I will let Nick address the emissions portion of that question.
Could I ask you maybe to speak about her question about CEQA?
Oh,
Might do
yeah,
that.
what was your question on CEQA?
How is it that it's exempt from CEQA?
As an infill project, it's an existing building, it's just occupancy of that building that has no impact.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bill?
William Crumble, 6280 Horseshoe Bar Road. Commissioner Wilson, I was confused about that building because I went over there to actually look at the site and was going, wait a minute. So, yeah, great minds think alike. But we have very little services and things here in Loomis where I can spend my money in town, which keeps a significant amount of that money here as opposed to going elsewhere. With the changes made and the recommendations of the town, the amount of emissions out of that with the new cars, you just plug a thing in, you run it for a few minutes, the computer talks to it, and it's done. It's not like the old days we had to rev it up and spin the wheels, and yeah, that would be a disaster. But to answer your question about the emissions, there'll be very little emissions. More emissions if there was a business there that had multiple, that was selling things, retail, and having 15 or 20 cars coming in and out would create far more emissions than the smog shop. And I'd like somebody local to go to with all my cars. Thank you.
Dave Walter, 5595 Tudor Way. My property is probably the closest one to the occupant and the planned business there. I just would hope that he could address tonight the noise expectation that we should have, because again, my property is right there. We already do get some noise from the cabinet maker and the drywall people and the landscaper, and you know, as much as I would love to support another business in Loomis, I think it's great personally, and my neighbor as well next door to me expressed the same thing to me tonight, that he wanted to get that addressed as well, see if there's anything that can be said or done about that. You guys talked about hours of operation. That was one of my questions. Security, so if the applicant could also address the waiting area, how the customers, where they'll be waiting, will they be contained in a certain area, because it is pretty open access to that new development that's going on. If you walk through that area, through the back, you can get to the new development that's there, and you can also get right to my yard and get to the area between the commercial shops and my yard. And that's been an area where we've called the police in the past, because there have been people, we've probably called the police 6 times over 15 years because there have been people back there. Usually it's been at night, so I don't expect that during the day we'd have that, but if you could address people management and how you'll handle that. And the last thing, since the property manager's here as well, I hope the applicant is understanding that there's significant water problems with that area. It's been a long time issue for over 15 years. It will frequently and significantly flood in that parking lot, and it's really bad, and I don't know if they are addressing that through this new development. I've come to town council on record before about this issue, and I'm not sure it's ever been addressed, but you should be aware of that. I don't know if that would impede your operations or not, but the wintertime can get very, very bad over there. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jamie Howard, 7220 King Road. My question just for the applicant is, I think it's great that another business wants to come in here. I'm totally supportive of that. My question is there a reason why you're not going into the vacant smog shop that was there before? Because that wouldn't impede on the other people's concerns. And then it also, we wouldn't have to do any upgrades or anything to this existing building. So just curious about that. So.
Thank you.
David Ring, 3486 Delmar. I just had a question about the ADA spot. It sounded like you were just restriping for the ADA spot.
The one directly in front of the business, yes.
Is it already level? Because I'm assuming, I don't know a whole lot about them, but I'm assuming you know more about the requirements for them. But the new
slope
ADA
and
spots
the-
have to have like really well grade,
Yeah.
and they're already that way, and they just have to repaint them. Is that?
That's determined when they actually do the
Okay.
striping. It will be to ADA standards. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
My name is Pam Blake. I live at Angelo Drive. At one time, it was mentioned, we had a smog shop right across the street. I would take my car there every other year. And I remember there was always a dog there. I think it was Spot. And it was mentioned that this smog shop would only be for testing only. But even with testing only, the engine needs to be running. I do my car every other year, so I don't really pay attention how long my car is running to get tested while I sit in the reception area. So I had mentioned about 15 minutes, but how many minutes is the car actually running? And I'm looking into the future that I don't want another fiasco that's going to happen like we had with the golden spikes, and where the commission sided with the business owner and not the homeowner. And thank you, Jean, for voting no on that. So that was my question, was how long is the car actually running to get tested? Thank you.
Hi, Sue Dobies, 5570 Arcadia Avenue. My concerns were similar to Sonia's and what Pam brought up about the emissions. And I know that there's going to be some cars that are newer and are not going to cause a problem. They're going to pass, no problem. But then there might be some of the cars that aren't doing so well that aren't going to pass. And I guess I'm just concerned, since it is so close to a residential neighborhood, about the impact of those. And I find it unusual. I don't know that much about the air pollution district, but to say no comment to me is a little bit odd. It seems like they should either say there should not be a problem, or, you know, there should not be, it's something a little more definitive. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other public comment, right now we bring it back to the applicant's opportunity to respond to the comments. So I kind of jotted them down as I went, so if, and maybe Mary Beth, did you do the same? And,
I
you
did the
got-
same,
okay.
and the only one that I can take off the list is the existing smog shop, why they're not moving into there. That property, although it used to be a smog shop, current zoning does not allow for a smog shop at that location within the downtown commercial district.
Because it's been vacant more than a year.
It's been vacant more than a year. So that not even an option.
Why would that not be an option, though, even if it's vacant for a year?
That use permit, the approval that went with that being a smog shop for however long that happened, that use is vacated. After a year, you revert back to current code and what permitted uses are at that location.
Okay. Okay,
They could apply for an approved use within the district.
just, this is kind of a small meeting, so I'm kind of, a lot of the rules are kind of relaxing a little bit, but technically, you know, we have kind of an order and a sequence, and so the public comment is done. We usually don't have one-on-one discussions going around, because then the meeting deteriorates very quickly. I appreciate what you're doing. I'm not trying to, and like I say, this is a very low-key meeting, so not an issue, but just so we don't continue. So anyway, the applicant is up to answer some of the questions, and I do have, one other question before you get going. I think that Mary Beth might be able to answer, is in regard to the flooding question.
You know, I looked at the floodplain map. It's not within a floodplain, so any flooding there would be drainage related. The town engineer made no comment about drainage. or any issues associated with that site.
So it sounds like that's kind of an ongoing issue that may be related not to just this property, but maybe some other
That
surrounding
area.
projects.
And perhaps the new project, and I don't know the new, the
Yeah.
mixed-use project, may be able to alleviate some of that drainage and help it go away.
Okay, well, maybe,
I'm speaking just from memory on this, but that was one of the concerns with that mixed-use project, and I believe they were going to have to do considerable amount of work to help fix the drainage situation in that area. I don't really remember the details of it, but that was one of the problems that they were going to have to work on.
It was one of the conditions to be able to do that.
So hopefully that will help this one too.
maybe, Dave, is it Alter?
Walter?
Steve
Walter? I thought that was Steve?
Was it Steve?
Dave, yeah. Maybe if you can give your name maybe to Mary Beth at the end of the meeting, and then we can kind of maybe round with Britt a little bit
Yeah.
and get you a better answer on that, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got a few things taken care of. So we got noise and air quality. So I don't know if you know, was going to kind of ask this question earlier, and maybe you can reference this in your answer. You have another smog business in Roseville?
Yeah, we do. Smog Busters #1. It's about 5 miles from this location. It's at Sierra College and Douglas Boulevard. We've been there about 7 years. And getting back to the noise,
Because I would say you might be able to tie your experience with that business into the answer of these questions, so.
yeah, exactly. And I know noise is a lot of concerns to you guys that live in the area, and I understand that. Basically, the test takes about 10 minutes. You guys pull in. My wife will service write you, create an estimate. We pull the vehicle around the back inside the warehouse bay. We have a laptop system that we log in your VIN number, license plate, year, make, and model, mileage, etc. The test takes about a total of 30 seconds of me plugging in my laptop to the onboard diagnostic cable of your vehicle. The vehicle will sit there and idle for approximately 30 minutes while it uploads the information off of your vehicle to make sure there's no check engine lights or anything like that. The vehicle will be shut off, and the majority of the time after that, for about 10 minutes, is me visually inspecting all the emission components to make sure that your car is current for the Bureau of Automotive and the Air Resource Board and everything like that.
You said idle 30 minutes, it's probably idle 30 seconds.
30 seconds, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. No, 30 seconds, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Basically, it just takes time to offload the information of your vehicle to the laptop. I'll do the visual test, which takes about 10 minutes total. It'll send it electronically to DMV, and then you guys will have the documentation that you need to get renewal for your car. As far as the older ones, I know someone had a concern about the ones that don't pass or are polluting or real loud. I'm not planning on doing any of those style of vehicles at this location. If the customer were to come from Loomis, Penryn, Auburn, at that time we would direct them down Taylor, up and over Sierra College, and then right on Douglas. I'm right there, and that's where I'm personally going to be working, is at that location. And we would be handling all those vehicles, motorhomes, UPS trucks, things of that nature. So.
Okay. So that was kind of noise, air quality?
Yeah.
Any comments on air quality?
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers of like what pollutes out into the air for your vehicle idling for 30 seconds, but I would say it's no worse than the traffic that's backed up at Taylor Road and Horseshoe Bar with several cars sitting there. We move the cars in and out one at a time. Yeah, on average, I'd say it'd be idling for no more than 1 minute, and then the vehicle gets shut off because I don't want to be breathing that myself, and I don't want, there's no reason to have the car running if there's no need.
Okay. I think did I cover it all? Did you have anything else on there? All right.
I think there was also a question about.
The safety, yes.
Safety and people management, where people will be.
Yeah.
Security, hours of operation.
Yeah, so like I said, at both of our locations, we have very nice waiting rooms that could accommodate probably up to about 15 people, including children. We have a little play area. So the customer will come in, my wife will check them in. They'll basically sit down, have a drink, watch TV, enjoy their time. We'll do the test, and then we'll send them on their way. I do about 30 cars at the other location in Douglas, just because it's very populated over there, and we've done a good job over the last 7 years getting repeat customers to come back. Most of the time, the customers just enjoy themselves and hang out in the waiting room. They don't want to come out to the back where it's hot or where it's raining. So I don't really get too much loitering as far as that goes. I don't see, and if I did, I mean, that would be a concern to me. I'm not going to have any of my customers walking around people's houses or other businesses and stuff like that. I can promise you that.
Okay,
Was there some kind of security question?
that's what he's just talking about.
Well, yeah, the people, and on top of it too, both of our locations, the current location has surveillance cameras that we can always play back. I've never had any problems at that location. Luckily, Douglas and Sierra College is a very good spot, kind of like Sierra College and Taylor Road, so I don't think that we're going to have too many problems of that.
Okay, it sounds like a low-risk business. It's not going to necessarily attract unsavory people.
Yeah, sometimes people get a little irritated if their vehicle doesn't pass because they can't get registration and stuff, so I kind of have to wear a target on that, but I've dealt with that for so long that I just try to help the consumer out, because not only is this tied in with Air Resource Board and the Bureau of Automotive, it's Department of Consumer Affairs, so every customer or consumer needs to get treated right, and the state and the Bureau have a protocol for that, so it goes relatively smooth. I've never had an incident. I've never had any problems with customers' cars or anything like that over about 7 years. So, and we're open 6 days a week, so we move quite a few cars.
Right, okay. All right, I think that covers it. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Okay, next we're going to bring it back to the staff. Anything additional to add? No? Okay, then we'll bring it back
I just wanted to say that
to the commission.
My initial concern when I started reading this was because I'm always concerned when anything backs up to a residential neighborhood, whether it's Swetzer or here where we have a commercial backing up, is to be concerned about the noise, and in this case, was there air pollution that was going to be a problem? And when I looked at the map, the photographs of the area, I thought, in this particular case, the location of the business is really set back. It's not, I was concerned it was going to be backing right up to the people's fences, and it isn't. It's at the front of the property, but besides that, there is a building. It looks like there's a building across the back that is helping to shield both noise and any pollution from going into the neighborhood. So I felt a lot better when I saw that it was not going to back up directly to the residential area. So I hope that's helpful to people.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, I don't have too many comments on, as far as the air pollution. I think standing on Taylor Road, or when you go to the elementary school and the parents or whoever is picking up their children during the summer are running their air conditioners for way long time, 20, 30 minutes waiting for their kids. So that's more of a concern to me, but I'm sorry, I guess I had to say that. That's all I have to say. Otherwise, I think we've addressed all the questions. It seems pretty clean to me. Does anybody else have any comments before we bring this to a vote? Okay, so then I guess what we're looking for is a motion to, approve this project. I don't think, one thing we always like to ask the applicant that you've reviewed all the conditions and you do agree to the conditions. Okay, no questions about those. Okay. Okay, so what we need is a motion to approve the project and also to approve the exemption for CEQA.
And to include the change on the Saturday hours.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Which is condition of approval number 23.
Okay. They're all thinking.
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion that we approve the application with the findings that are attached and the finding that it is categorically exempt under CEQA with the adjustment in Saturday hours just discussed. I think that's it.
I second.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner London?
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan?
Yeah.
Chairman?
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. It's been approved. Okay, good luck. Let's see, the next, we did have one, we've changed on our agenda, we kind of changed the order for comment from the commissioners, that items that are not on the agenda. We used to do that at the beginning. I didn't catch that myself, but I was notified that we're moving that to the end for, do you want to explain the reasons? That was a good explanation.
So the reason we're moving this item to the end is in case there's anything mentioned during any public comment during the item or during the general public comment that commissioners wish to direct staff to bring back at a future meeting. That way the commissioners have had the entire meeting to think that over, have had the full benefit of all of the comments to kind of think of any further direction that they'd like to provide. It's fairly common with other Brown Act bodies that this item happens at the end for exactly that reason. So that's why we thought it was a good idea to move this item towards the end of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So, with that said, does anybody have anything to bring to the commission?
I was wondering, in regard to Mr. Quenville's comment at the beginning about traffic and development in the county, that's not really something that this commission would get involved in. Maybe Mary Beth, you could find out and refer that to whichever branch of the town would look into that.
I would like to comment on that also, Gene. We have no control over the growth outside the town limits of Loomis, although we do make comments to the surrounding communities. And I've said this many times, I've said it during other items before the commission. The traffic is coming to Loomis no matter what we do, because we are a small island with a major road coming through our town. So the town developed a transportation plan which provided for some improvements that would give us alternatives to our one main drag and the onslaught of traffic from Lincoln Hills, Bickford Ranch, the list goes on. I'm talking about, well, I think on the books there's about 5,000 or 7,000 houses within just a few miles of Loomis. So what we have to do as a planning commission is see that we generate the revenue required to get these cars through our town. Toward the transportation plan that we have developed, it's well over $10 million in improvements, and in the last 10 or so years that it's existed, we've come up with $300,000. We're not going to get there without welcoming businesses like Smog Busters that is moving into an existing facility that is properly zoned for what is going to go there. So development has to be balanced so that we can provide for ourselves, our town, and the improvements that we're going to need, because we can't wall ourselves off. And when I deliberate these issues, I'm always thinking about that. And on previous items before the commission, I've said, hey, I'm not violently opposed to some of these developments or some of these proposed businesses, because it gives us the ability to plan long range to get the traffic under control, which it's not. If a serious fire comes through Loomis, we've got a very bad situation here. We only have one road. I never thought about this till my friends were burned out in Santa Rosa, and then the people who couldn't get out of Paradise. So we're behind the 8 ball. We have not provided for ourselves, and the only way to do that is to somehow generate the revenue we need to provide for our town. We're woefully behind. So welcome to town, and we'll spend your tax revenue well.
I'm glad to hear that. I live in town.
That's a service, it's a
But the traffic is coming, and I don't like it either. But as a commission, we're pretty powerless.
Okay, so I think we're kind of at the end of our agenda, other than maybe what's the date for the next meeting? Is it August? Yeah, at 7 p.m. So everybody made it. That's a good job.
And everybody made it at 7?
At 7, yeah.
Even
the public.
constituents?
Uh-huh.
So that's good.
Karen will confirm August 22nd.
22nd, okay. All right, okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Easy peasy.
Mary Beth.
I thought, holy cow.
Carol.
Yeah.